स्वागत है प्राइम एशिया ते इलैक्शंस ब्रैम्पटन इलैक्शंस वोट्स 2022 सो मैदान बहुत गर्म होया जिद्दां साडे कोल घट दिन लगे और एडवांस वोटिंग भी शुरू हो चुकी है ब्रैम्पटन दे अंदर साडे नाल प्रेजेंट सिटी ऑफ ब्रैम्पटन दे मेयर पैट्रिक ब्राउन जिहड़े कि हुण कैंडीडेट है मेयर दी पोस्ट लई काफ़ी कुछ कंट्रोवर्सीज चलियां काफ़ी कुछ एलीगेशंस लगियां लेकिन वो सवाल जवाब जिहड़े जारी रहूगे उन्होंने हर वो सवाल पूछा जाऊगा जिहड़ा साडा या तुहाडा रेजिडेंट्स दा है पहले उन्हों दा स्वागत करते हैं फिर उन्होंने नाल सवाल जवाब की गलबात करते हैं मेरा साथ दे रहे मनन गुप्ता एज ए मॉडरेटर Patrick, welcome to Prime Asia.
Always great to be at Prime Asia. Nice to be back with you, Manan and Nitin.
Thank you, Patrick. Patrick, to start with, we won't waste any time because there are a lot of questions and residents want to know. You are running as a candidate for the mayor. There are so much of attacks. There are negativity from the other campaigns. So, are you attacking the other opponents also, or they are attacking you? Why they are attacking you in their campaigns?
So I think campaigns that are very far behind will result to desperate attacks. I don't think that's what resonates with residents. I don't think Canadians like mudslinging. You know, when I ran for mayor 4 years ago, I was against an incumbent. It was a very close race. But I put forward what I aspired to do for the city. I never put Linda Jeffrey's photo on my literature. It was never about attacking Linda Jeffrey. It was about saying, what would I do on policing? What would I do on recreation? What would I do on finances? And frankly, I think that is what voters expect. Don't spend your time attacking others. Outline what you would do differently. And you'll remember, you know, I had a famous press conference outside a tennis court. There was a big sign that said, no cricket allowed.
That's
and I said, we're going to change things. We're going to invest in cricket. We're going to get lights. We're going to get grass cutting equipment. I said we were going to take a different approach to recreation and diversify recreation. That wasn't an attack on the incumbent. It was articulating a different approach. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you know, when I see mudslinging, frankly, I think it turns more people off than it wins over.
Patrick, one thing, will you accept that Bob Singh Dosanjh, whether anybody wins out of all the candidates, he got a popularity vote because he's famous across the globe with his small videos. Do you accept that if after the elections anyone wins as a popularity, so Bob Singh is winning somewhere?
So right now, I'd say according to polls, Bob Singh is in second place. Mm-hmm. I think the last poll I saw had him at 11%. You know, Bob's a nice guy. I know he's running a combative campaign. But when Bob was running for city council in Mississauga, he actually came to see me. He said, Patrick, I want your blessing. I want to run for city council. Can you give me advice? He came to my house in August. He actually filed to run in Mississauga because, you know, he's a lifelong Mississauga resident. Mm-hmm. And I wished him well. And I said, I'm glad you're getting involved in politics. I'm glad that you care about the democratic process. And I think he's enjoying TikTok and having fun with the campaign.
That's right.
You know, I think using social media as a way to tell your story is part of politics today.
That's right.
Definitely. I think people's engagement is very critical. So Patrick, once again, welcome. You know, in 2018, Bramptonians played a very critical role in reviving your political career, reviving your political life. So what ails Brampton now? Fast forward to 2022, we are still having the same issues of Brampton. Brampton is not being heard. Brampton's, you know, long pending demands are not being met in the same way. So what ails Brampton now?
So, you know, I would disagree with that assessment. You know, 4 years ago, I said, when you look at Brampton, our major issues, whether it is transit, hospital, we're not getting our fair share. When it comes to public safety, we're not getting our fair share. I had a press conference saying Ottawa and Toronto get gun and gang funding, but Brampton doesn't. Well, guess what? Brampton now gets gun and gang funding just like Ottawa and Toronto did. When it comes to the hospital, I said we've been offered peanuts, 45 million, this and that, peanuts. And now we have a tender that was issued, 1.1 billion, the largest healthcare investment in Brampton history. The new hospital construction starts this year. 1.1 billion with a B. It's going to be a 24/7 emerge up to 350 beds, full service emergency. We're adding a regional cancer center to Brampton Civic. We got the first new med school in 100 years in the GTA. One doctor said to me recently, we've never seen this level of investment in healthcare in Brampton history.
But-
And so when you say the major issues aren't being attended to, the biggest win that the city's had in the last 4 years is the hospital. That was a big one.
So you think that Brampton doesn't have major issues to deal with right now? We are all okay. It's a good to manage
No,
city.
what I'd say is, listen, there's still more needs for the city.
Right.
But when I look at some of the major wins we've had in the last 4 years, never in our history have we had this many wins in such
Okay.
a short period of time. Let me give you another example. I said in the campaign 4 years ago that the GO train service was inadequate, that we needed two-way, all-way GO.
Yeah.
I had a press conference with the new council on a moving GO train.
Right.
And the mainstream media in Toronto, Nitin, you remember this, they all covered it. It was on CBC, Global, CP24. And the reason I did that is I wanted to start a conversation. I knew if I had a press conference on a moving GO train and they would see how crowded it would cause the media to talk. And if the media talked, they'd talk at Queen's Park. What happened was the GO train cuts got reversed, and the government has now announced an expedited timeline for two-way, all-way GO. And so if you look at the major issues that have confronted Brampton, we've seen the yardstick move in the last 4 years in a manner that we have not seen in recent memory.
So, Patrick, University of Gulf Humber recently announced that we are not relocating from Etobicoke to Brampton. And we saw the controversy in the Brampton U also for some councillors. So what do you have to say on this statement of University of Gulf Humber?
So this is very important for residents to understand. I need a bigger mandate at City Hall. I've been saying this again and again. I got elected last time with one councillor openly supporting me. I want to go back to council with a strong majority and a strong mandate. Because I give you an example. A lot of people know that I faced opposition on the Bill 21 vote and the cricket vote. But I got a lot of opposition on the university vote. There was a motion at council to end any negotiations over the university. It was a 6-5 vote. I was on the side that said I want to negotiate. And so we lost Guelph Humber because we have 6 councillors who said and voted to end the negotiations. So, with no dance partner, of course Guelph Humber was going to leave. But I'm going to say this very clearly. I want a university in Brampton. I want a university in Brampton because young people in our city deserve the same post-secondary education opportunities that they would have in Waterloo, Thunder Bay, Sudbury, Kingston, all smaller communities. And I say to the 6 councillors who voted no to a university, give your head a shake. Because you know what? This city deserves a university.
But do you think Brampton U was an eyewash or a mistake? Because the deputy mayors from the city of Brampton, they said that it was an eyewash. Do you still think that was a correct decision to create a Brampton U website and all their spending funds there?
These people who say don't go after a university, they're selling our city short. They're selling young people short.
Okay.
But let me tell you this. The Brampton U advocacy, which spent less on advocacy than the previous term of council. This term of council spent just under 600,000. The previous term spent 700,000. The previous term had nothing to show for it. This term, we've seen an expansion with Algoma for a major computer science program, an aviation program. We landed a med school. The premier told me on the phone, he says, I can't give you a university yet, but how does a med school sound? This is all because of the advocacy, particularly of Councillor Santos and Councillor Singh. But let me say, it all ended when council passed a motion saying to stop negotiations. We lost Guelph Humber because 6 councillors said no. We lost any hope of having a Brampton University when 6 councillors said no. So I tell you this, if I'm re-elected and I have a majority on council, we're going to fight for a university. We're going to fight to make sure young people in our city have the same academic opportunities as they do elsewhere.
So on that note, are you just happy with the majority like a G6 in your favor, or you want a G11 council?
I would love to have a G11 council. I want to see United Council. I want to see a mandate to be ambitious for the city. People that say Brampton shouldn't try for a university or Brampton shouldn't try for better transit were the same people telling me we could never get a med school. The same people telling me we can never get hospital funding.
But Patrick, you were a leader. You are a leader. You were a leader, and there were groupism. There was a division. There was not a single person who could have been a bridge between both the groups and run city of Brampton functionally well.
So that's why I'm asking for a majority this time. It's why I'm saying very clearly, last time I got elected with a minority of support in a close election. If I get a clear majority this time, we can go further and faster and more ambitious for the city of Brampton. I don't want to see I don't want to see council stop our ability to fight for more for our city. And so, this election is important.
Bilkul, Patrick, in your last campaign 2018, during the victory speech, I remember that particular evening, your campaign was distributing back on track caps. I might have one in my historical archives. Yeah. So do you think Brampton is back on track under your leadership?
Yeah, I think we've, for decades, Brampton was forgotten from funding. And if you look at the massive transit investment we got, the largest electrification of our bus fleet, 84 new buses, the new hospital, the new med school, the 2 new rec centers, the new police division, I'd say we're definitely back on track, but we can pour more momentum into that success if we come back with a larger mandate.
So City of Mississauga Mayor candidate Bonnie Crombie, she said she wants Mississauga to be out of the region of Peel. So how does that affect City of Brampton? Does it affect any effect, or does City of Brampton gets its fair share if they go out, or what will be your advocacy in that?
So we had this review a few years ago, and the province did a review based on cost, and Premier Ford and his Municipal Affairs Minister Steve Clark ruled against it. The reason they ruled against it was because they said it would cost taxpayers more in Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. Right now we pool services for the police, for paramedics, for water, and so if you had 3 police forces, if you had 3 water facilities, if you had 3 paramedic chiefs, it means more cost to management. And so the reviews on the value for money showed that if you broke up the region of Peel, it would lead to a large tax increase. And Premier Ford at the time said he didn't want to do anything that would lead to additional taxes on residents. And so I support the Premier's decision not to break up these shared bodies in the region of Peel. There's some areas I think you could improve. I look at planning. Planning's duplicated. It's at the regional level and the local level. Anywhere there's duplication, I say delegate it to the city. But in areas where there's not duplication, if it saves money, I support saving money.
Okay.
Yeah. Patrick, just a few days ago, the National Task Force released a report on supply chain management, all across federal Canada. There have been talks about improving infrastructure, and Peel region is the logistics capital of Canada. Do you see the feasibility of Highway 413, because municipality of City of Brampton has had, different views at different times on voting. So what is your stand right now?
So I support the 413. The City of Brampton made some amendments in terms of the areas where there could be population density. The province at this point has said no to those amendments, and I've said I'd prefer if they accepted our amendments, but even if they don't, I still support the 413 because I believe that transportation corridor is critical for our ability to get product to marketplace. And I know that there's Mississauga councillors objecting right now. Could you imagine Brampton objecting to the QEW? Could you imagine Brampton sticking its nose in a highway that is clearly relevant only to Mississauga? And so I hear from Brampton residents, a lot of them are saying, why is Mississauga trying to block this transportation corridor that is critical for Halton, Caledon, Brampton,
and the future of GTA?
Yeah.
So why is this political gridlock then? What is the roadblock?
So you'd have to speak to the councillors who are trying to block it. I moved a motion with the Mayor of Caledon, Alan Thompson, to immediately approve the 413 planning in our regional plan. That motion failed, so you'd have to speak to the councillors.
So you are in favor of Highway 413.
Yeah.
So Patrick, moving to next question. You froze the taxes for 4 years, and we don't know whether that was a good step or not. So is Brampton in financial crisis? Reason I'm asking this question because there are 3 unions, Fire, Transit and Cube 831. Their contracts will be renewed in 2023 and 2023 and 24. From where the revenue will come? What is the extra revenue City of Brampton can generate to renew the contracts of these unions?
So let me say very clearly, our city signed long-term agreements with our public sector unions. We have longer-term agreements signed than most of our municipal comparables. There was no strikes. It was a very collaborative agreement. I'm also proud to say that those same unions, ATU, firefighters, police unions, these unions are supporting my candidacy to come back as mayor, which I think is really a vote of confidence in my ability to manage the city. In terms of the city finances, we put a record amount away into reserves. We put $122 million away into reserves last year. Put that in the context, that's the most in Brampton history we've put away each year. Each of the 4 years, we set a new record for what we put into our savings account. And people say, you know, Mayor, why are you insisting on freezing taxes? Right now, our tax rate was higher than all the other people around us. And so when people say, you know, why do you want to freeze taxes? Why in Brampton do we have to take more than they do in Caledon or Mississauga or Oakville? I can't justify that it costs more to clean the same street, to fix the same park in Brampton
so you don't agree
as it would
that
elsewhere.
Brampton in financial crisis, there's no crisis?
This is the
Stress, financial stress, we can say.
This is the best credit rating we've had in our history.
So just few days ago, we had your other council colleagues, come down to studio. They have been complaining that this tax freeze has actually delayed the infrastructure maintenance of many recreation centers, many community centers. They are in dire need of maintenance. How truth is in that statement?
You know, it's difficult to. These same councillors voted for the budget.
They say the budget bundles, budget binders have been reduced to few pages. In previous years, it used to be a pile of this much, I don't know.
It was a 500-page document this year. So anyways, I'd say someone who votes for something and then say they disagree afterwards is a little bit
because as a team leader, we would like to hear from you. What's the real status out there?
Well, we've made massive investments in recreation. We put more aside in infrastructure than any previous time. And so we're putting the most amount we have at any point in our history for infrastructure. It's difficult to complain that we're not putting enough away when in no period in previous councils did they put as much away as we did in this term.
Patrick, if you get re-elected, how will you make sure that the bars at the City Hall, because we have seen the bars gone very down with the division and with all the controversies we saw in last 1.5 years, and your reason, you said that it's because you don't have a mandate. So how will you make sure, if you get re-elected, that their bars are so high in terms of corruption, in terms of integrity, in terms of any allegation, sexual assault allegation on anyone? So bars should be that level that Brampton can be an example to other municipalities. Sure. And we heard that in your speeches too, that you want Brampton to be one of the best city and to be example. How will you make sure that that will happen?
Well, I think it's important for voters to elect councillors that are ready to roll up their sleeves and work hard for Brampton. Ultimately, they say the voters are always right. And so I hope the voters will put people around the table that are ready to work in united fashion to implement an ambitious agenda. If the voters choose to have a divided council, that's a message they want. That's what they want. But I'm hopeful, and based on what I'm seeing around the city, I think we're going to have a great council.
On that note, any shout out to particular candidates, because you're looking for a majority? This is an opportunity for you to mention their names, because we know there is a lot of groupism, there is a lot of behind the scene momentum. But any particular candidates you are looking forward to work together?
So what I would say is in many wards, there's 2 or 3 candidates that are all campaigning saying we support the mayor's agenda. And so I'd say in most wards, there are multiple candidates who are saying it's time to move forward in united fashion. And so rather than...
so no personal choice, nobody's, everybody's looking at you right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to specify names, but what I would say is obviously there's been people out there...
So you want to play safe,
but I would say is I give credit where credit's due. I look at the new field hockey dome we're going to have at Cassie Campbell, the great work that Councillor Paleshi did on that. I look at Councillor Santos. We would not have a med school today if it wasn't for advocacy.
Well, they're all incumbents. I'm talking about the new candidates.
I look at Councillor Singh. In particular, Councillor Singh has worked really closely with me. Every time that I've wanted to move the cricket file forward, he supported me. So those are examples of people that I can speak very positively of. But in terms of candidates running, I would encourage voters to look at which candidates support an ambitious agenda for the city and those that sort of want to go back in time.
Thank you, Patrick. Patrick, in your recent statement, you said that there are many politicians that talk about defunding of the police. Can you name anyone who said, because we found that there is no one who is saying defunding of police, we need more police officers. Can you pinpoint who are those politicians who are talking about defunding?
Yeah.
So let's be very clear. Anyone who talks about freezing the police budget or cutting corners is out to lunch. And I tell you why. And Nitin, you can go back to the Region Appeal budget debates. There were councillors. I'm not into negative politics, but there are councillors there who were arguing to use robots for policing, to freeze the police budget. It's all on the public record.
सवाल सीगा पैट्रिक ब्राउन ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਟੇਟਮੈਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਡੀਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਆਫ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਬਹੁਤ ਲੋਕ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨਸ ਕੋਈ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਕੌਣ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਨਾਮ ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੋਗੇ ਪੈਟ੍ਰਿਕ you want to take the name who are
yeah,
those?
so I want to add to that. Obviously, the budget debates are public record, so you can look at those councillors who said cut the corner. I want to say, starting off, I'm proud to have the support of the Peel Regional Police Association, who publicly endorsed my candidacy as the best candidate for public safety. And frankly, to see one of the other campaigns, the campaign manager put a tweet out disparaging the police. Police run towards danger when others run for safety. There should be an appreciation. So when I see tweets disparaging the police, especially 2 weeks ago when we had a police officer shot in the back of the head, it is so distasteful and offensive that I can't believe you'd have campaigns putting stuff like that on social media. My plan is to support the Chief's request. The Chief has said he needs 250 police officers to deal with the volumes to 911. I heard one candidate say they want 100. 100 wouldn't even cover attrition. 100 would not even cover the police officers that retire. When the chief says he needs 250, when the police association says they need 250, I'm going to support them. Plus, they need 30 new staff at civilian staff at 911 headquarters. So to give you the context on this, right now, we do not have enough police officers to respond to the 911 calls that come in, and the chief has to tier which calls he can respond to. And so I'm proud to be known as someone that steps up for the police at the region of Peel.
So,
and these councillors who think that you can freeze the police budget or cover less than attrition, they're out to lunch. Right now, we don't have the police officers to respond to break and enters and to auto thefts. If you cut their budget or freeze their budget, you'll have serious violent crimes that we can't respond to. Yeah. But the last thing I want to say on public safety is I want to thank Prime Asia, because when I launched my campaign on bail reform, you were the first media outlet to cover it, and that doesn't get attention. Bail reform is one of the dirty secrets in our justice system. You got some of the same criminals getting out again and again and again. We had the Henderson-Bellman case here, where someone was released 5 times.
Exactly. So just on the crime and public safety issue, do you think the mayors of cities like Mississauga, Brampton and Caledon, they should be on the Peel board by default, Peel police board? Because in the previous term we had you and Martin Madero split the term of 2 years. Sometimes there is a friction, who will take the first 2 years and who will take the second 2 years. Do you think there should be a better way to, because ultimately it is for public cause?
Well, I think that's a different conversation. End of the day, the police budget gets approved by the region of Peel, so every regional councillor gets a vote on it. Every regional councillor gets to have a significant input into what we spend on public safety.
Patrick, question is of safety, and you said in your statement that next time if you get elected, safety, security will be your a bigger challenge or your priority. Question is, there were attack on media personalities. There was attack on Mr. Basi, attack on Jyoti Maan, there was attack on Deepak Punj. There are all media personalities. Is Peel Police under some political pressure? What you have to say, Jyoti Maan's mother was awarded, which is a good, she did a bravery. But where are the culprits? Where are the culprits of all these attacks? Where are they? Investigations are on. You and Martin Medrios, they were in police board also. Ron Chatta is on the police board. Where are the culprits? Residents are asking.
So let me say there's a very high level of professionalism with the Peel Police. And I want to thank the media personalities who had the courage to speak out. And I would note, you look at Jyoti Maan or Joginder Basi, those are 2 individuals who have endorsed my re-election because they know when they faced adversity, I quickly spoke out and tried to offer help. I can't speak about the status of ongoing investigations.
For last 2 years, many years, it's ongoing and ongoing.
The individuals who were victims of the ongoing investigations know the status, but it would be up to them to share broader information. What I would say is the Peel Police are very, very effective at investigations. And if you give them time, if you give them resources, they will find the culprits behind crimes. And let me just give you 2 examples.
So you're hopeful that we'll get those culprits?
Let me give you 2 examples. Yeah. You were talking a lot about the sword fight that happened at the College Plaza. they arrested all the people involved very quickly. We talked on your show about the 6 Hindu mandirs that had a break and enter.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks, the Peel police arrested the people responsible. And so, sometimes you speak about the unresolved cases. There is 9 times more resolved cases than there is unresolved cases. Criminal organizations are becoming more sophisticated. They use different techniques to hide their behavior. But I've got great confidence in the capacity of the Peel police to hunt down criminals who have pierced our public safety.
Patrick, in addition to this, only because we are into the crime and crime, we are discussing this safety security. In the Sheridan Plaza, City of Brampton, we cannot handle one single plaza, which is a college plaza, because Sheridan College Plaza name has been destroyed across the globe. And there are councillors, there are MPs, MPPs living in that area. The residents of that area is very scared. They don't go to that plaza for shopping. They go to others. So can't we handle one plaza? Second, all those incidents, there was no one who was a resident of Brampton. Their driving license were either from Nova Scotia, Woodstock or Quebec. And when we talked to the police, they said, we are not investigating this. We are investigating criminal aspect only. Are they dodging the insurance? Why people take Brampton granted that this is our place, we can do anything we want? Why don't we have strict laws here in Brampton? Why can't Brampton be a leader and show the other municipalities we are strict with the law?
So I think you've touched a few things there. First of all, in terms of being strict with the law, the police laid charges. So it wasn't like anyone got off the hook. They laid charges. Those people are going to go to jail. There is consequences. In terms of the College Plaza, that plaza, the police made a presentation before our city in September, highlighting their plan to how to keep that college plaza safe, what they're working on, additional cameras, additional police presence, and they're now closing a segment of the parking lot, so there's not a giant parking lot available.
Is closing the parking lot a solution, Patrick? How long we are going to close down the parking lots?
So they're not closing down the parking lots. At nighttime, in that period between 12 and 6 a.m. when there was an increased activity where there'd be a large group of cars coming, what the police made a realization for in collaboration with the owner of the plaza, which is a private sector owner.
Don't you think they are dodging the insurance also with that?
So they came into a decision that one way to mitigate all these cars showing up at that plaza is to only open a small amount of the parking lot necessary for those midnight hours. And so far, over the last month, that approach has been successful.
Okay. So are they dodging the insurance also? Because their driving license were from Quebec and Nova Scotia and Woodstock, and they found a sword fight here in...
But the person in Woodstock wasn't living in Brampton.
Well, there is a lot of misrepresentation happening in the insurance sector due to high rates of auto insurance, and we all know it is a active file with the province. Moving ahead, we have very limited time. Moving ahead on your economic agenda, Bramptonians also want better jobs here, good industry here. What is the plan for City Council under your leadership?
So I said 4 years ago, if you have any hope of recruiting businesses, you need to do 2 things. You need to freeze taxes and you need to cut red tape. We hired an economic expediter to work with businesses that were looking at Brampton. At the same time, we created some special development incentives. Giving you an example of how it's been successful in an extraordinary manner, you look at MDA. MDA was looking at doing a new facility to cater to the robotics on the Canada Space Arm. Scarborough was pursuing, Markham was pursuing, all these cities were pursuing, we landed them. $100 million investment that's being built right now in Financial Drive. There'll be 800 new jobs, rocket science jobs. In the movies they say, hello Houston. Yeah. Now they're gonna have to say, hello Brampton, because the robotics on the Canada Space Arm are gonna be serviced here. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You look at Boston Scientific, one of the largest medical technology companies, just announced their new Canadian headquarters in Brampton, the new Electra facility in Brampton. And frankly, when auto plants have been closing across Canada, we managed an agreement with the provincial and federal government to save our auto plant. It's now going to be producing electric cars. It's going to be secure for generations to come. The Stellantis facility that used to be known as Chrysler, we were able to save that facility. And so in terms of both job retention and economic development expansion, this has been a pretty impressive 4 years.
Okay. So industry will be coming to Brampton if you get re-elected?
the type of investment we've seen come to Brampton in the last 4 years, we're going to see more of that. If you were impressed with the wins we've had, these massive wins with MDA, Boston Scientific, you're going to see more of that as long as I'm mayor.
Okay, thank you.
So Patrick, Brampton is Canada's 9th largest city. We have often been hearing about it. It is a welcoming city to newcomers. What kind of opportunities do you see for newcomers to make their life much more affordable, thriving and integrating? Especially looking at the HACE sector, heritage, arts, cultural and entertainment aspect. Because people say there is nothing to be entertained here in the city of Brampton.
So I think there is unlimited potential in Brampton. The talent, the resiliency is incredible. And I know lots of people like to tear Brampton down. And there's people that don't like that their city's growing or changing. But let me say this, I'm proud of Brampton. The New York Times called me and they said, what's in the water in Brampton? And I said, what do you mean what's in the water? They said, half of Canada's national soccer team going to Qatar for the World Cup is from Brampton. How do you produce so many athletes, artists, musicians, comedians? And so Alessa Cara, Russell Peters, Tyler Seguin, Sean Monahan, Tristan Thomas, the list goes on and on. There is talent in our city. There's something we're doing here that is incubating talent. And not just on a sporting level or a music level. Look at small outfits like Jade's Hip Hop Academy that has chosen to perform at the Raptors games. We've got talent in the city. And so do I think there are opportunities to succeed in the city? 100%. One story that I've shared quite often is, I look at the story of BVD. Their owner, Bikram, came to Canada with nothing but the shirt on his back. He came here with not a penny. He just donated $10 million to our hospital. And you know what he told me? The reason he gave $10 million to the hospital, he said, this is what's possible in Brampton. This is what's possible in Canada. A newcomer can come to our city, and if they're willing to work hard, anything is possible.
Patrick, moving to next question, can Bramptonians see Brampton downtown as a modern downtown? Because we know that federal says we send the funding to the city of Brampton, and city said we don't have fund to make it a world-class downtown Brampton. And Rose Theatre, we know there was a funding for the Rose Theatre renovation, roof and stairs. We know there was a funding for Susan Fennell Community Center. But what about the 2040 vision? What about downtown Brampton modernization?
So a few comments there. First of all, the city's never said that there's not enough funding for the downtown revitalization. I want to thank the federal government. They delivered for us in this term funding for Riverwalk. Riverwalk was the flood mitigation plans that allow us to build density in the downtown. So the federal government delivered for us on that. And I want to recognize, I don't want anyone to be mistaken that there was a big win there with Riverwalk. We've embarked upon the downtown revitalization plans. We wanted to align it. It was going to be regional at one time, city at one time, and if you have them separate, it takes twice as long. And so we wanted to limit the disruptions for business by aligning the construction periods. There's no point of digging twice. If you need to fix sidewalks and streetscapes and pipes, you do it at the same time. And so we finally are pulling that bandage off. It's going to be a difficult few years in the downtown because we're doing this construction work, but it's necessary.
So 2040 vision still alive?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So on that note, on downtown, will we ever see LRT come through the downtown in our lifetime?
And is province giving funding for the LRT? Because you said that you are in talk with the Pramit Sarkari and Amarjot Sandhu too.
So we had a meeting with Dominic LeBlanc initially, who is the federal intergovernmental affairs minister. He said he loved our plan. It's the one that was unanimously adopted by council to connect the LRT into the downtown, the last portion being tunneled. And then he said, take it to the province. We had a meeting with Kinga Sarma and Pramit Sarkari. Pramit's been helping us advocate for it. They said they would be supportive if the federal government increased their envelope. So it's a bit of a cat and mouse, but just like it has been on other issues, like our transit facility, I'm going to stay on them to make sure we get that funding because I believe Brampton deserves a modern transit system.
So will it be one of your active priorities in the new mandate if you are re-elected?
Yes, I want to see that those infrastructure dollars flow to our city. What we're asking for on a per capita basis for LRT is less than what Scarborough, Vaughan, Kitchener-Waterloo, Ottawa, Hamilton all got.
Patrick, nepotism. So there are so many allegations. The list is quite long, which we heard from the residents that near and dear ones, they get a job in city of Brampton. Is that true? Do you know any councillors, those who are near and dear ones are hired, or any staff, their near and dear ones are hired? Do you think nepotism there?
So when I got elected, I heard about that.
Okay.
I heard about some of these old councillors who have been there for 30 years, their sons and daughters working at City Hall. We ended that.
How did you end
And
it?
we passed a motion saying that you couldn't hire someone if they were a relative. And so if you work at City Hall now,
Okay.
and you've got a family member, you're a councillor, you can't have a family member get hired at City Hall. And before I was elected, there was numerous cases where you had councillors with family members working at the region or at the city of Brampton. I don't want to name names, but these are some of my critics, and I know they're upset that I made this change. But it should be based on talent and merit and abilities, not who you're related to. And so I'm glad that our council took that bold decision to say, no, that's not permitted.
Okay. Patrick, moving to next, other opponents, your opponents and their campaign, they say, if we get elected, first thing we will do an audit in City Hall. What is your stand on that? Are you in favor of audit? If they get elected, they will put an audit. Are you scared, or you are welcome that this audit, you want yourself that audit?
Especially the investigations which have been, recently.
Yes.
So Nitin, here's an example. So when you run against people who have no municipal experience, one from Hamilton, one from Mississauga, they don't understand how Brampton City Hall works. We do an audit every year. KPMG does the audit. It's publicly available. And if they were involved in any aspect of municipal governance, they would know that's publicly available. It's mandatory.
So every year there is already audit.
Of course.
So there won't be any forensic audit in the new term, whether whosoever is your council team member.
We do an audit every year. It's mandatory.
Okay. Moving ahead, again, hypothetically, if you get re-elected, will there be any change in your governance style? Do you look back at 4 years, especially since when you started to look at the leadership of Conservative Party, we saw that division in the council came to be exponentially high, since February of March. Before that, you were able to still get along well. But after March, there was hue and cry. What do you think went wrong?
I don't think it started with the federal initiative. It started when we had some disagreements, and a few of them happened. I'll give you an example. Bill 21, I had 4 councillors boycott me on it. That was a divisive issue. But I knew what we were doing is right. No one should lose their job based on their faith. No one should be told they can't be a teacher or a police officer because they wear a hijab or a turban. The other very divisive issues for us, as you know, we talked about on your show, was the barn. We had a councillor who wanted to give $1 million to buy a barn from Caledon. The value of the barn was $30,000. His wife worked for that group, and I thought it was a blatant conflict of interest. It was incredibly an abuse of taxpayer dollars. This was on the front page of the Toronto Sun, and I thought to myself, I know he was offended. He was upset. He's like, "Why are you attacking, my wife's organization?" I said, "I'm not attacking your wife's organization, but councillor, I cannot defend you spending $1 million of taxpayer money on something that's not worth it. That's not good value for taxpayers." And so it would have been easier for me just to say, okay, let the councillor do it. But I cannot sit idly by and watch a councillor waste taxpayer money. If that ever happened again, I would call it out. Voters elected me to be a fiscal hawk. Voters elected me to make sure we watch the pennies and the dollars at City Hall, and I'm going to continue to do that.
Patrick, we say that community voters, they are the bosses, and we are, being a political post, we are a servant. So you served 4 years as a mayor, City of Brampton. Do you regret anything which went wrong, and you regret on your decision, or anything in 4 years which you think you could have done it differently, what you had done?
Listen, I think everyone has regrets.
Yes.
It's natural, and we're 11 votes around the table. We've had some staff decisions that all of council were agreed on. We all said this is the best person, because the mayor doesn't hire anyone. Council, if you hire a CEO or a senior position like that, you do together. So certainly, I think we've made mistakes, but I think when you see mistakes, you learn from them.
Any of your decision which you
adjust.
regret? Any of your decision which you regret?
Well, there's certainly votes that I regret. I regret losing the vote on the multi-purpose cricket facility. I regret that we've lost the university vote. Those are regrets that I have, because I I would have loved to been able to get those past the finish line for Bramptonians, but I'll tell you what, Nitin, if you get me if I get a larger mandate, a majority on council, we're going to get those additional cricket amenities, we're going to get that university.
So you know, you are raising a young family in Brampton. What message would you like to pass on to our international families, those who are aspiring to come and start their new life in Brampton?
Listen, this is a great city for families. I've got a 1.5-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and we've got great playgrounds, great recreation facilities. It's a family-friendly city. So if you're looking at Brampton, yeah, it's a great place to live.
Patrick, thank you very much for coming and discussing all these issues, and we wish you all the best in your campaign, and we wish all the best to all other candidates also, because it's a good fight and voters have to decide for the advanced voting and for the 24th, which is a Diwali and Badi Chhor Divas. We request everyone to go out and vote and choose your best candidate. Manan.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया प्राइम एशिया देख रहे सारे दर्शकों का एक बार फिर कर दें धन्यवाद वोटिंग वाले दिन ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਵੋਟ ਪਾਣੀ ਹੈ ਲੈਟਸ ਸਟਰੈਂਥਨ ਆਰ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਐਂਡ ਮਿਊਨਿਸਿਪਲ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਵੈਰੀ ਵੈਰੀ ਕ੍ਰਿਟੀਕਲ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਵਿਚ ਪਲੇਜ਼ ਰੋਲ ਇਨ ਯੂਰ ਐਕਟਿਵ ਲਾਈਫ so let's get out and vote and let's make our democracy strengthening and you know thriving in this wonderful country of ours. So thank you very much for watching Prime Asia.
Thank you, Patrick. ਸੋ ਆ ਸੀਗੇ ਪੈਟਰਿਕ ਬਰਾਊਨ ਮੇਅਰ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਵੋਟ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਪਾਓ ਅਸੀਂ ਫੇਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਜਲਦ ਹੋਵਾਂਗੇ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ